I can't quite believe it, but it's been 3 months since I bought the M4 Mac Mini, and yes, I've got some updated thoughts. Last year, I claimed that the M4 Mac Mini is Apple's best ever product, which raised a few eyebrows, but I don't care, it's my opinion, and there's several reasons for that. One of them is that this is the most affordable way to get into macOS if you want to buy a brand new Mac. Lovely. Secondly, if you think about it, this is one of Apple's most personal products because you buy this little box and you add whatever you want to it. You know, a keyboard, a mouse, obviously a monitor, but you can add loads of peripherals. You can basically build your own little computing empire around this, which is just amazing for the price. And thirdly, and most importantly really, is the fact that this opens so many doors for so many people, which I'll come on to a bit later in this video. This video is going to be me gushing about the M4 Mac Mini, I'm afraid. I've got 5 things that I love about it, but equally, just to counteract that, I've got 5 things that I'm not so happy about, having used this solidly nearly every single day for 3 months. So if you're looking to buy an M4 Mac Mini soon, this is the video to watch. Oh, and we've just opened a huge giveaway to celebrate the fact that this channel has just passed 200,000 subscribers. Thank you so much if you've added to that number. If you haven't and you enjoy this video, give that button a little click wherever it is. But we've got a MacBook Air, an iPad, an Apple Watch, and lots of other very cool stuff to give away. To enter, just click that link in the description. Oh, and a huge thanks to Backmarket for helping us with this. We'll put a link to their website in the description as well. Okay, 5 things that I love about the M4 Mac Mini, starting with how easy it is to buy. Basically, just get the base model. Get the base model, upgrade it to 512 gig of storage, and be done with it. It's enough for most people. If you need more memory, if you need more storage, you probably know that's the case, and you'll go for that. Equally, if you think you need the M4 Pro chip because you do very intensive graphics work or whatever for your business, then go for it. But for most people, I think the power of the M4, the base model version, is just enough. My dad is a great example of this. He's been rocking an Intel 27-inch iMac for the last few years, and a little while ago he rang me and said, "Mark, I need a new Mac. What should I go for?" And immediately I just said, get the base model M4 Mac Mini, add 512 gig of storage, get the studio display because he's used to that big 5K display, and you will love it. And you know what? He hasn't got it yet, but when he does get it, he will thank me. Number 2 is the size of this thing. Just look at it, and for comparison purposes, we get the previous generation, and this is an Intel one because the back comes off. More on that later, by the way. It's comically smaller. Look how big the previous generation was. Unbelievable. It just means that you can slot this anywhere, and let's be honest, it should be this size now because Apple Silicon doesn't need all of that space. But the good news is we have lost some ports actually. We've lost USB-A, but we haven't lost USB-C, and actually we've gained USB-C on the front, which is lovely. Number 3 is the power that you get out of this thing thanks to that M4 chip, and as mentioned earlier, I think the base model M4 is enough for most people. The fact that now comes with 16 gig of unified memory means the 8 gig argument has gone, thankfully. That's just a thing of the past. But the things that you can do with this are incredible. I've done my own stress test with this, which involved putting loads and loads of tracks into Logic Pro for music production, and running multicam 4K video edit in Final Cut Pro, and exporting hundreds of big files, big photos from Lightroom. And the M4 Pro version, which is this, just completely devoured all that stuff without ever breaking a sweat. But even the base model version did an incredible job. The things you can do with that, the best way that I can relate to this is from a music production standpoint, because since about the age of 12, I've made my own music in my bedroom. Check me out. And back then, which was a long time ago, you had to really compromise with the number of tracks that you were running and all that sort of stuff. Now you can run hundreds of tracks with loads of MIDI, loads of audio, loads of effects and stuff in a tiny box that costs less than £1,000, less than $1,000. That is nuts. Number 4 is the lack of any noise whatsoever. I've never heard the fans come on my M4 Pro Mac Mini, and when I did the stress test on the base model M4 Mac Mini, again, no noise and virtually no heat. It got a tiny bit warm and that was it. But if you've heard about the fans coming on these Mac Minis, it's from people who have been doing ridiculous stress tests, things that you would never do. Most people watching this video, in fact, most people who buy one of these would never be running that many ridiculously, involved applications simultaneously, doing all this very complicated stuff just to make the fans come on. It's ridiculous. This is the most silent computer ever. Number 5 is what this means for content creators and creatives and anyone who wants to do serious stuff with their Mac, but who doesn't have a massive budget. I wish this existed when I started this business. It didn't. I had to buy a expensive Intel-based 16-inch MacBook Pro back then, which was slow, had a terrible keyboard, was really noisy, and was just horrible. If this had existed, I'd have saved myself at least $2,000 and had a much better computer. There has never been a better time to buy a Mac than now because of this. If you're using both a Mac Mini and a laptop and you want to share the same display and peripherals and stuff, swapping cables can be an absolute nightmare, which is why this week's sponsor, Mini Sapporo, have the answer with their brilliant KVM switch. With just one USB-C connection, you can switch between devices instantly, keeping your dual 4K 60Hz monitors, USB-C accessories, and audio connected without any hassle. Plus, thanks to ED-ID simulation, your windows stay neatly arranged, which means no more screen reshuffling every time you switch. And this is more than just a switch, it's also a USB-C docking station with high-speed USB ports, 15-watt charging for your phone or iPad, and even an external switcher for easy toggling. And best of all, switching between your Mac Mini and laptop takes just 2 to 3 seconds. It is worth noting that if you're using a device with the M1, M2 or M3 chip, then it only supports one HDMI interface. However, the Mini Sapporo does allow for dual HDMI expansion, which is a massive upgrade. If you want a cleaner, faster and frustration-free workspace, check it out. The link is in the description. Okay, 5 things that I don't like about the M4 Mac Mini, starting with the lack of an SD card slot. And I know some people don't agree with me with this, but there's a reason that Apple puts an SD card slot onto the MacBook Pro and the Mac Studio. Clearly, they see it as a pro feature, which is weird because a lot of pros are buying this, and a lot of pros who, trust me, still use SD cards. The good news is, there is a solution for this. It's not a sponsor, I just love their stuff. Satechi has made a hub for the Mac Mini where your Mac Mini sits on there and you get a nice braided cable which you pop into the back like that, and suddenly you have an SD card slot and 3 USB-A ports. They made one of these for the previous generation Mac Mini and I loved it, and a lot of other people loved it. Trust me, this is what you need. And no, it doesn't interfere with Wi-Fi or the heat dissipation from the Mac Mini. I've had no problems with either of those since I've started using this. It's simply given me back that port, which is so important. If you want one of these, there's a link down in the description, and yes, we do get a kickback because it's an affiliate link, but trust me, it's worth it. Number 2 is the power button placement, and if you've been living under a rock for the last 3 months, you may not be aware of the fact that the power button on the M4 Mac Mini is there. It's on the underside of the computer, which means you need to lift it up slightly to turn it on and turn it off. A lot of people set their trousers on fire about this and made an awful stink about it on the internet. That was fun for a bit because someone like me who enjoys goading people like that got quite a bit of content out of it and quite a bit of engagement out of it. After a while, it got a little bit boring because it doesn't matter. I can't remember the last time. In fact, the last time I'll need to touch this rather, is when I put it back over there and plug it in after this video. That's it, it's left on apart from that. And if you get the Satechi hub, they've thought about this. They've put a little thing here which should satisfy the trouser fire people, because you can put your finger in and turn it on without lifting it up. Happy days. But what annoys me about the power button placement is that it kind of overshadowed the launch of this, and that's a shame because this is the best thing that Apple has ever done, and to have people moaning about the power button placement is annoying, and Apple could have got round that by just putting it there. Number 3 is the lack of colour options. Why couldn't I buy an iMac coloured Mac Mini, Tim? Why not? Number 4 is the absence of an alternative to that very expensive studio display that I have over there. I get the whole premium thing with Apple when it comes to displays, but I have a feeling there's a very big market for a more affordable version of the studio display that will go perfectly with the M4 Mac Mini, because the M4 Mac Mini goes perfectly with the studio display. When you put these two together, they look lovely, and it's just such a beautiful image as well, but it's ridiculously expensive. You'll have to sell one of your legs to get one. So I would love a cheaper studio display for this. Number 5 is the fact that you can't upgrade this thing, and yes, this is the Apple Silicon era. These are sealed boxes now. You can't buy one and think, maybe in 12 months' time I'll add another 16 gig of unified memory. You just can't do that. Storage you have to add externally. This basically doesn't do what this did earlier. The back doesn't come off. This is the Intel version where you can, this is broken, it doesn't matter. You can basically whack out the memory, put more memory into it. You could, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I think you could upgrade the SSD in here as well, or you could change it, you could kind of swap it out. This business doesn't happen with this. That does not move, which I know annoys some people, and I know we're in the era of Apple Silicon, but if we could get to a point where this Mac Mini was upgradable as well, ooh. Despite those minor grumbles, and they are minor, I still think the M4 Mac Mini is the best thing that Apple has ever done. But as always, it's over to you. Tell me your M4 Mac Mini story in the comments. And if you haven't hit subscribe yet, guys, you know where that button is. Give this video a like if you've enjoyed it, please. And I'll catch you in the next one.